Somewhere right now, someone is waiting. Waiting for Monday. Waiting for January. Waiting for the boss to notice, the market to turn, the timing to finally feel right. They are waiting for a season that is never going to arrive on its own. And if you're honest, really honest, the kind of honest you only manage at midnight, maybe that someone is you. So let's start with the sentence most people spend a lifetime avoiding. Because once you hear it, you can't unhear it. Nobody is coming. Nobody is coming to hand you the discipline you've been waiting to feel before you start. Nobody is coming to notice the years you spent almost trying. Nobody is coming to give you credit for the version of the plan that only ever existed in your head. Here's the part that stings, and then the part that sets you free. In that order. The world is not against you. It's simply indifferent. Everyone around you is fighting their own quiet war, their own bills, their own doubts, their own ceiling to stare at during their own 2 a.m. Nobody has spare attention left over to referee yours. And indifference isn't an insult. It's an invitation. If nobody is watching closely enough to stop you, nobody is watching closely enough to catch you failing either. You are freer than you think. You've just been too busy waiting for permission to notice the door was never locked. You clock in. You show up. You keep promises to people who never say thank you. And some nights you lie there wondering if any of it is being recorded anywhere. If it matters. If anyone sees the invisible effort behind the visible life you're slowly building. Here's the truth. Plain. With no ribbon on it. It was never going to be witnessed. Growth doesn't happen on a stage. It happens in a hallway, alone, at 5 a.m, when the only audience is the person you're becoming. So we have two options today, and only two. We can spend the next 50 minutes mourning the applause that was never going to come. Or we can build something so solid it stops needing an audience to be real. Nobody cares. Read that again, slowly, and let it land the way it's meant to. Not as a punishment, as a release. Nobody cares. So work even harder. Not because it's fair, because it was always yours to carry. And anything you carry long enough, alone, you eventually get to call completely yours. Let's sit inside that sentence a moment longer, because most people rush past it too fast to let it change anything. Nobody cares. Not your extended family, who ask about your plans twice a year and forget the answer by dessert. Not your old classmates, too busy narrating their own highlight reel to study yours. Not the algorithm, which forgot you existed the second you closed the app. Not even the people who love you most. Not because they don't love you, but because they're drowning in their own version of this exact video, wondering if anyone notices them either. Here's what stings on first listen. You've spent years performing a discipline you thought someone was grading. Dressing your effort up so it would look impressive if anyone happened to check. Waiting to start the real version of your work until conditions looked good enough to be seen. Nobody was ever checking. There was no exam. There was no judge marking a scorecard on the wall of your life, deciding whether you'd earned your rest, your success, your next chapter. And here's what should feel like relief instead of grief, if you let it. If nobody's grading you, nobody can fail you either, except you, in the only classroom that ever mattered, where you're both the student and the teacher. Think about how much energy you've spent managing an audience that was never actually watching. The plan you delayed because it wasn't polished enough yet to show anyone. The idea you buried because you imagined the laughter of people who are statistically far too busy surviving their own lives to laugh at yours. You were performing for an empty theater the whole time. So here's the reframe, and it's the hinge this whole video turns on. So let it sit for a second. Nobody cares was never an insult about your worth. It was an announcement of your freedom. Nobody cares means nobody's stopping you either. Nobody cares means the only permission slip left to sign is your own. Nobody cares means you get to fail in private, learn in private, and rebuild in private, for as long as it takes, without a single person keeping score. That's not lonely. That's spacious. That's the whole field, finally empty of spectators, entirely yours to plant in exactly the way you've always wanted to, if only someone had told you sooner that nobody was watching closely enough to stop you. Let's talk about two kinds of people. You already know both of them because you've been both of them in different years of your life. The first person is waiting for permission, waiting for the economy to loosen its grip, for a manager to finally see their potential, for someone to believe in them a little louder. Don't mistake this for laziness. It rarely is. They're simply waiting for the outside world to hand them a reason to begin. The second person stopped waiting, not because their circumstances were kinder. Often theirs were worse. They simply understood something the first person hasn't learned yet. Conditions are not a prerequisite for discipline. Discipline is the prerequisite for better conditions. Read that one twice if you need to. It's the hinge this entire video swings on. Here's the gap that quietly ruins most lives, and it never announces itself as dramatically as it should. People keep wishing it were easier, when they should be focused on becoming better. Easier was never in your hands. Better is entirely, non-negotiably, in yours. Wishing is a conversation with the ceiling. Becoming is a conversation with the mirror. Wishing says, if only things were different, I would change. Becoming says, I will change, and then things will be different. Same letters. Completely different life on the other side of them. Now, an honest question. Even if the answer only happens inside your own head, are you currently managing a wish list, or are you managing your character? One of those is a note on your phone. The other is a foundation. And foundations are the only structure strong enough to hold a tall life without cracking under its own weight. Here's where philosophy splits from mindset, because people use those words like twins, and they're not even cousins. A fixed mindset asks, do I have what it takes? A growth philosophy asks, what do I need to build, and how long am I willing to build it for? One is a question about identity. The other is a question about method. One keeps you frozen at the base of the ladder, measuring yourself against the height. The other puts your hand on the first rung and asks only one thing of you. Climb this one, then worry about the next one. You were not born disciplined. Nobody was. Discipline isn't a gene. It's a decision. Repeated so many times it eventually starts to look like a personality. The people you quietly envy for their work ethic did not start there. They started exactly where you're standing right now. Uncertain, untested, secretly afraid they didn't have it in them either. The only difference between them and you is repetition. They kept showing up on the days it didn't feel like it mattered. You are being handed that exact same chance, in this exact sentence, right now. So here's the pivot in thinking that changes everything if you let it. Stop asking the fixed mindset question of, am I the kind of person who succeeds? Start asking the growth philosophy question of, what would the kind of person who succeeds do today, in my exact shoes, with my exact hours, starting in the next 60 seconds? One question freezes you at the bottom of the ladder. The other one puts your hand on the rung. Now let's talk about the oldest law there is, older than any economy, older than any algorithm, older than any manager who never once said thank you. It's the law every farmer understands before they understand anything else about their craft, because the field never lets them forget it. You reap what you sow, not what you meant to sow, not what you intended to sow, somewhere in the back of your mind, on the days you had time to think about it. What you actually put in the ground, with your actual hands, on your actual days. Nobody negotiates with a field. You don't get to sow doubt in March and demand a harvest of confidence by October. You don't get to sow a year of scrolling, snoozing, and shortcuts, and then feel betrayed when November arrives with nothing in the basket. The field isn't cruel. The field is honest. It hands you back a perfect, undeniable receipt for exactly what you planted. No more, no less, and no amount of complaining to the field will change the invoice. Here's where most people get the timing wrong, and it costs them everything they were capable of. They expect the harvest in the same season as the sowing. They plant on Monday and expect fruit by Friday. When Friday shows up and the field still looks like plain dirt, they decide the whole method was broken. So they rip out that seed and plant a different one, and then another. And they spend 10 years planting, and never once let anything grow long enough to bear fruit. Discipline without patience isn't discipline. It's just a slower, more exhausting way of quitting. There are seasons to this, and nobody, not you, not me, not the loudest voice on the internet, gets to skip a single one of them. Spring is when you plant, and nothing shows yet. You feel a little foolish, because you're doing the work and there's no visible evidence the work is working. Summer is when you tend it, and it's hard, unglamorous, sweaty labor, weeding, watering, showing up on the days you don't feel like a farmer at all. You just feel like someone standing in a field, wondering why they started. Fall is the harvest. It's the only season anyone applauds. It's the only season anyone posts about. But notice, it's the shortest of the 4 seasons, and it was completely paid for, in advance, by the other 3. And then there's winter, the season nobody warns you about at the start, because it's bad for business to mention it. Winter is when the field looks dead, when effort seems to vanish into frozen ground with nothing to show for it. Most people misdiagnose winter as failure. It isn't. Winter is rest, disguised as loss, quietly preparing the ground for the next spring, whether you can see it happening or not. Here's the part I need you to actually absorb, not just read past on your way to the next paragraph. You are very likely in a season right now that you've completely misdiagnosed. You think you're failing. You might simply be in spring, 3 weeks into the plan, wondering out loud why summer hasn't arrived yet on a random Tuesday afternoon. So, what if the problem was never your effort? What if it was your patience with the season you happen to be standing in? If you sow discipline, you reap capability. If you sow excuses, you reap explanations. Capability builds a life you can stand on. Explanations only ever build a story you tell yourself at 2 a.m., trying to make peace with a field you never actually planted. Nobody is coming to check which one you're sowing. Nobody is going to walk your field for you and pull the weeds while you sleep in. That was always the arrangement, whether anyone told you up front or not. It was always going to be your field, which means it was always going to be your harvest too. Let's talk about the most underrated force in your entire life. Compounding. Not the compounding your bank mentions in passing. The compounding of character, which pays a far stranger and slower interest than money ever will. One good decision, on its own, looks small, almost embarrassingly small. Waking up 30 minutes earlier, reading 10 pages, making the call you've been avoiding for a week, saying no to the thing that feels good for an hour and costs you a month. On its own, that one decision won't change your life. And that's exactly the trap, because your mind does the math wrong every time. It looks at one small good choice, compares it to the size of your problems, and concludes, this is pointless, this doesn't move the needle, why bother? But you were never supposed to judge day 1 by the size of the mountain. You were supposed to judge day 1 by whether you were the kind of person who shows up again on day 2. That's the only metric that has ever mattered, and it's the one almost everyone ignores. Here is the actual math, the real math, the one that governs everything you will ever build. Small disciplines, repeated over time, lead to massive results. Small indiscretions, repeated over time, lead to massive regret. Sit with the weight of that sentence, because it's not 2 roads to 2 different destinations at the same pace. It's the same road, walked by 2 different people, paying attention at 2 completely different speeds. The disciplined path is heavy at the start, and lighter with every year that follows. The undisciplined path is light at the start, and grows unbearably heavy the longer it's ignored. You are choosing, right now, in this sentence, which weight you'd rather carry, and more importantly, when. Here's what nobody tells you about regret. It never arrives as one dramatic collapse. It arrives as compound interest on every day you almost started. It isn't one big failure. It's 10,000 small postponements, accumulating in a corner of your life you've trained yourself not to look at directly. Discipline, on the other hand, stays invisible for a long, uncomfortable time. That's the part that breaks most people before they ever see a return. They want proof by Thursday. They want the mirror to look different after 1 week of trying. But character isn't built in a week. It's built in the specific, unglamorous moment you keep a promise to yourself that nobody would ever know you broke. That's the test. That has always been the only test that mattered. Not what you do when the room is watching. What you do in the room where nobody is. Nobody sees the version of you that gets up on the cold morning instead of hitting snooze a third time. Nobody sees the version of you that closes the laptop instead of opening the 10th episode. Nobody sees the version of you that shows up to keep a commitment on the day grief is sitting heavy on your chest. Nobody sees it. And that is precisely why it's the only thing about you that's completely real. The moment something requires an audience in order to happen, it was never discipline in the first place. It was performance, wearing discipline's clothes. Performance does not compound. Only the private decision compounds. In the dark, without asking your permission to keep adding up. Discipline doesn't ask for applause. Discipline doesn't ask for proof. Discipline only ever asks for tomorrow, and then tomorrow again, and then tomorrow after that, for as long as it takes. So here's a question worth actually sitting with, instead of letting it slide past. If nobody ever found out, would you still do the work? If your answer is yes, you've found your philosophy. If your answer is no, you've found your excuse, wearing a very nice outfit. Let me tell you about 2 Mondays that looked identical from the outside. Same alarm time, same gray morning, same tired eyes in the same bathroom mirror, same quiet voice in the back of the head, whispering that today could be the day something finally changes. In the first version, that voice gets snoozed along with the alarm, not out of any dramatic failure, just a decision to wait for a slightly better Monday. A Monday with more energy. A Monday after the weekend has properly recovered. A Monday that never quite arrives, because there's always something reasonable enough to wait for instead. In the second version, the same tired person, with the same tired eyes, gets up anyway. Doesn't feel ready. Doesn't feel inspired. Just decides that today's Monday will do, because there was never going to be a more perfect one waiting in a drawer somewhere. Here's the part that should genuinely unsettle you. On that first Monday, you cannot tell the two people apart. Same effort, roughly. Same energy. Same results. That same week. Film both Mondays and place them side by side. Nobody watching could point to the one that mattered. Now fast forward exactly 1 year. 52 Mondays later. The first person has made the reasonable decision 52 separate times, each one small enough to seem harmless on its own. And they are, roughly, the same person they were a year ago, except more tired of being that person, and running out of new reasonable excuses to explain the sameness. The second person kept making the unremarkable decision to start anyway. 52 separate times, each one so small it barely felt like an achievement in the moment. And they have become, without a single dramatic turning point, someone almost unrecognizable from who they were a year ago. Not because one Monday changed everything, because none of the Mondays were allowed to be skipped. This is the part nobody shows you in a highlight reel, because there's nothing to film. There was no single decisive moment. There was only the accumulation of a decision so small it never once felt like it was building anything. Until, a year later, it very obviously had. Here's something worth saying plainly, because it might be the single most useful sentence in this entire video, and it's short enough to remember on a bad day. You will pay a price either way. There is no version of your one life where you pay nothing. The only real decision left is which price you're willing to pay and when. There is the price of discipline. It's due today in small, uncomfortable installments. An early alarm, a hard conversation, a workout you don't feel like doing, a distraction you say no to, while it's whispering that just this once won't matter. And there is the price of regret. It's due later, all at once, usually with interest you didn't agree to and can't negotiate down. It shows up as a life smaller than the one you were capable of, as a skill you never built because you were always going to start next month, as a relationship that starved while you were busy being busy with everything except it. Discipline weighs ounces today. Regret weighs tons later. That's the whole trade, laid out honestly, with nothing hidden in the fine print. And here's the part people don't want to hear, because it removes their favorite excuse. You don't get to choose whether you pay. You only get to choose the currency, and the day it's withdrawn from your account. Most people, without ever deciding it on purpose, choose regret. Not because they're weak, because regret's price tag is invisible at the register. It lets you walk out today feeling like you got away with something, and it only sends the real invoice years later, in a moment you didn't see coming. A birthday, a mirror, an opportunity that finally closes for good. Discipline is honest about its cost up front. That's actually its biggest advantage, if you think about it clearly. It never lies to you about the price. It simply asks you to pay a small amount today, in cash, so you never have to pay the enormous, compounded bill later, in a currency made of years you can't get back. So, maybe the most important question in this whole video: which bill would you rather open? The small one, due today, that you can actually afford? Or the large one, due eventually, whether you're ready or not? You already know the answer. You've known it the whole time. The only thing left standing between you and it is whether you're willing to make the payment today, in the small, unglamorous currency discipline actually deals in. If you're still here, that already tells me something about you. Most people clicked away by now, looking for a shorter answer, an easier hack, a faster fix. You didn't. That's not an accident. That's philosophy showing up before you even noticed it arriving. So let's keep going, because the next part is exactly where most people quietly go back to sleep, right as the real instructions are about to start. Before I give you the 5 things to do today, I need to clear something out of the way, because by now, part of you is expecting a hack, a trick, a shortcut with a clever name that promises the results without the years. There is no hack coming. I don't have one, and honestly, if I did, I wouldn't hand it to you, because a hack builds a result without building the person who can hold on to it. You've seen this before. Someone gets the shortcut version of success, and within a year, they've lost it again, because the win outgrew the character that was supposed to carry it. What I have for you instead is smaller than a hack, and over time, infinitely more powerful. Character, assembled one unglamorous decision at a time. Character doesn't trend. Nobody has ever gone viral for keeping a boring promise to themselves for the 400th day in a row. But character is the only foundation strong enough to hold whatever you eventually build on top of it, hack or no hack. So forget the shortcut you came here half hoping for. Here's what actually works, and it was never going to be flashy. You don't need a 5-year plan today. You need a 5-minute decision. Today, ideally in the next hour, before your mind talks you out of it with its usual tired excuses. Here is what today actually requires of you. Not someday, not Monday, today. First, pick one thing you've been postponing and do the smallest honest version of it in the next hour. Not the whole project, not the polished version. The smallest possible start you can't talk yourself out of. If you've been avoiding the workout, that's not 90 minutes at a gym. That's putting your shoes on and walking to the door. If you've been avoiding the business idea, that's not a full plan. That's 1 page of honest notes. Momentum was never about size. It was always about contact. You cannot steer a car that hasn't moved. Second, remove one small poison from today. You already know exactly what it is. You knew before I finished this sentence. It's the show you rewatch to avoid your own thoughts. It's the scroll that quietly eats the hour you meant to use for something that mattered. It's the snack that isn't really food. It's just numbness wearing a wrapper. You don't have to quit it forever today. You have to say no to it once, on purpose, and notice, really notice, that you survived saying no. Third, keep one small promise to yourself that nobody else will ever audit or even know about. Set the alarm and get up when it rings, not 20 comfortable minutes later. Drink the water, write the 1 page, make the bed before you leave the room. These sound too small to matter, and that's exactly why they matter so much. Because if you cannot keep a promise this small to yourself, you were never going to keep the big one either. The big promise is just 1,000 small ones, wearing a trench coat. Fourth, have the one honest conversation you've been avoiding. If it can't be with the person yet, Let it at least be with yourself, on paper, saying the sentence you keep swallowing at the dinner table. And fifth, do all of this without telling anyone. Let it stay invisible. Let it be entirely, quietly yours. Because the moment you announce a discipline before you've actually built it, you've spent the reward before you've earned a single cent of it. Here's the contrast that will decide the next 5 years of your life, whether you notice it deciding or not. If you wait for motivation, you'll only move on the days it happens to show up, and it will show up less and less the longer you depend on it. If you build discipline instead, you'll move on every single day, whether motivation shows up or not, and eventually it will start showing up anyway, simply because you kept the appointment without it. Motivation is a guest. It comes and goes exactly as it pleases, and it owes you nothing. Discipline is a resident. It lives in whatever house you actually build for it, and it pays rent every day you let it stay. You are not behind because you lack talent. You've heard that lie often enough to almost believe it. It's time to stop renting its space in your head. You are behind because you've been waiting for a feeling to show up before you were willing to act. So flip the order today. Act first. Let the feeling catch up when it's ready. It always does. Late, a little embarrassed it wasn't there at the start. But it shows up, every time, for the person who refused to wait for it. Now I want to speak directly to the version of you who has already tried. Because some of you aren't starting today. You're restarting, again. And there's a specific kind of tired that comes from restarting something you thought you'd already fixed for good. Maybe you had this discipline once, and lost it somewhere along the way. Maybe you built real momentum, and then a season knocked you flat without asking permission first. A job ended. A relationship ended. A body stopped cooperating. A plan collapsed for reasons that had nothing to do with how hard you were trying. Let's be honest about something the loud hustle crowd conveniently forgets to mention. Some winters are not your fault. The frost doesn't ask the field for consent before it arrives. Here's the distinction that will save you from a decade of unnecessary shame, if you let it. Failure is not a character flaw. Failure is a season. It has a beginning, and, this matters more than anything else in this whole video, it has an end. No season, no matter how brutal, no matter how long it drags on, is ever the entire story. The people who eventually make it are not the people who never had a winter. They are the people who refuse to let winter become their permanent address. Notice the difference between visiting a place and living there. You're allowed to visit failure. You're allowed to sit in that cold for a while and genuinely grieve the version of the year you thought you'd have. That's not weakness. That's honesty. And honesty is the beginning of every real comeback that's ever happened. What you're not allowed to do, if you want a different next chapter, is unpack your furniture there. Is build a permanent house out of one hard season and start introducing it to people as your personality. So, an honest question, even if it only happens quietly in your own head. Are you currently in a season, or have you built a home out of one bad year and started paying rent on it? Here's the quiet cruelty winter specializes in. It convinces you it's the whole forecast. It whispers, late at night, that this is simply how your life is now, permanently. And that whisper is a lie winter tells to absolutely everyone who's ever stood inside it. Spring has never once, not a single time in all of human history, failed to return for someone who kept their seeds, instead of angrily burning the whole field down out of frustration. You don't have to feel ready to plant again. You only have to still have seeds left. And you do. You're still here, still listening, which means the part of you that wants more is still alive, still asking, still refusing to fully surrender the field. That part of you is your spring. It just hasn't announced itself as loudly as your winter did, because spring has never needed to shout. It only ever needed you to still be standing when it arrived. Nobody is going to walk into your winter and hand you spring on a schedule that's convenient for you. That was never on the table, and it never will be. But nobody, not one person, not one bad season, not one unfair year, can stop you from planting again either. That was never on the table for them to take from you in the first place. Now, before we go further, I want to correct something, because if I don't, This whole message can curdle into something ugly. Work even harder is not permission to burn your health, your family, and your peace to the ground chasing a finish line that keeps moving anyway. There's a version of hard work that's actually just fear, dressed up in a suit and given a job title. It looks productive. It earns applause at first. And it is, the whole time, a ladder. Climbed fast, climbed impressively, leaning against the wrong wall. You can climb that ladder for 20 years and get exactly to the top of it, only to discover it was never leaning against the life you actually wanted. It was leaning against approval, or the fear of being ordinary, or a wound from a long time ago that money was never going to heal, no matter how much of it you piled on top of it. So before you sprint any harder, ask the question almost nobody asks in the middle of a sprint. Which wall is this ladder actually leaning against? A life isn't one row in the garden. It's the whole plot. There's a row for your health, and if you starve it while you feed the career row, you'll eventually harvest a body that can't enjoy anything the other rows produced. There's a row for the people you love, and if you leave it unwatered for years while you chase the harvest everyone can see, you'll come back one day to find weeds where a family used to be, and no amount of success will translate into an apology that undoes the silence. There's a row for your own mind, quiet and easy to skip, and if you let it go wild, you can end up successful and unrecognizable to yourself in the very same year. Working even harder was never supposed to mean working on one row while letting the rest of the garden die of neglect. It means tending the whole plot with the same discipline you're finally learning to give the one row everyone applauds. Here's the version of this philosophy that actually holds up over a lifetime, instead of collapsing at year 7 from exhaustion and quiet resentment. Work harder on your character than you work on your resume. Work harder on your patience than you work on your image. Work harder on your patience than you work on your image. Work harder on your patience than you work on your image. Work harder on your patience than you work on your image. Work harder on your patience than you work on your image. Work harder on your patience than you work on your image. That's not softer advice. It's actually harder advice, because it's easier to grind at a job with a scoreboard than it is to sit quietly with someone you love and give them one full, undistracted hour. Discipline was never only about output. It was always about direction, too. A person sprinting hard in the wrong direction doesn't need more speed. They need one honest, uncomfortable look at the map. Let me show you something. Not a fantasy, a forecast, built entirely out of decisions you're fully capable of making, starting today. Picture the version of you, 3 years from this exact afternoon. Not perfect. Not suddenly a different species of person. Just steadily. 3 years more disciplined than the version sitting here right now. That version of you wakes up without dreading the day. Not because life got easier, but because you got sturdier. That version of you has a body that can carry the plans your mind keeps making. That version of you has relationships that were actually tended instead of merely survived. That version of you has a skill, or a business, or a craft that took 3 winters to grow real roots and is now standing tall enough that people mistake it for talent, when really, it was patience wearing a disguise. That version of you isn't famous. Doesn't need to be. Nobody throws a parade for the version of you built on ordinary Tuesdays. But something has changed that no parade could ever capture anyway. That version of you trusts themselves, deeply, completely. Trust was never built on one grand gesture. It was built the exact same way a field builds a harvest. One kept promise at a time, in rooms where nobody was watching, until keeping promises simply became who you are, instead of something you occasionally attempt. Picture the harvest table, because every field eventually sets one. Picture sitting at it, looking back at the seasons behind you. The springs where nothing seemed to show. The summers that felt like unglamorous labor for no visible reason. Even the winters that scared you into thinking the whole thing was over. And realizing, only from this distance, that every single one of those seasons was necessary. Not one of them was wasted. Even the ones that felt like it at the time. This is available to you. Not to some other version of you with better luck, more time, or a different set of problems. To you, exactly as you are, with exactly the hours you have today. The only real question left is whether you're willing to plant something today that you won't get to see grow for a while. That's the whole price. That's the entire cost of admission to this future. Not talent, not luck, not permission from anyone. Just the willingness to keep sowing through seasons that don't clap for you yet. Let's make this simple, because by now you don't need more explanation. You need it laid out plainly, back to back, so it sticks. If you wait for the mood to strike, you'll work 4 days a month. If you build the discipline, you'll work 365. If you chase motivation, you chase a guest who visits when it's convenient for them. If you build character, you build a resident who stays, even when it's inconvenient for you. If you wish it were easier, you'll spend your life negotiating with a ceiling. If you become better, you'll spend your life building a floor strong enough to hold the next version of you. If you sow comfort, you reap a smaller life than the one you were capable of. If you sow discipline, you reap a life large enough that comfort eventually finds you anyway, and stays, because you finally earned a version of it that doesn't disappear the second things get hard again. Small contrasts. Enormous distance, given enough seasons to travel it. So here's where I leave you, standing at the edge of your own field, holding seeds you've been saving for a season that felt safer than this one. There isn't a safer season coming. There's only this one, and what you're willing to plant in it. Nobody is going to applaud the version of you that starts today. Nobody is going to notice the quiet decision you're about to make the moment this video ends. There will be no ceremony, no witnesses, no audience clapping you into your next chapter. And that was always going to be true, whether you started or not. So it may as well be true for the version of you that finally did. Discipline was never about being seen. It was about becoming someone who no longer needs to be. Plant the seed nobody will notice. Tend the field nobody will applaud. Keep the promise nobody will audit. Not because it's fair, because it's yours. Nobody cares. So work even harder, quietly, patiently, one honest season at a time, until the life you built stops asking anyone for permission to exist.